So today I'll be covering the request fulfillment process. The request fulfillment process allows us to make any kind of general request to a multitude of different departments, get that request approved by a manager, and then get that request fulfilled by a group or individual who is responsible for fulfilling that request. So I'll be starting here on the request dashboard. Now this would be available to any user who has access to this particular process. Typically, because of the fact that this is so broad purpose, you would have this available to any user who is using the decisions environment. Now I can see down here I have one request that is currently in flight, so this one hasn't been finished yet. I have a few different key performance indicating tiles, some information that might be pertinent to me, for example, how many requests I've put in, how many are currently in flight, and how many have been approved. On the right-hand side here, I can see some information about the currently selected report item. So on this, I have a general request that I put in, and I can see over here on the right-hand side, I had some information. And right now it's sitting on hr@example.com. This is the user who's currently responsible for approving this particular task. So I'm going to go ahead and submit a new request. So I'm just going to click this button here in the top right. I'm going to select a category. So again, this is actually being used as a department selector of sorts. So I'm going to choose IT because I actually want a new laptop. So I'm going to go ahead and say, IT, I would like a new laptop. And I have a chat box here for some details. So I would like a new laptop, please. I can give them a date needed by, and I might have an urgent request, but this one, I still have a current laptop. I don't need a new laptop just yet. And also, most of these requests, they're going to require at least 1 week of notice in advance. So if I try to select one of these earlier days, for example, 2 days in the future, I'll get this validation warning, and if I hover over, it says the date needed by must be at least a week in advance. So I'm going to go ahead and change this date. I'm going to go ahead and go into next month, just choose a random day here. And this is outside of the scope of that validation rule. And I can also select a priority. Well, I do want it. It's not urgent, but I can go ahead and set medium. I think that's fair. And if I had a picture of a laptop, I could go ahead and upload a picture of the specific laptop that I wanted. For my purposes, this is perfectly fine. At least 16 gigabytes of RAM. I'll go ahead and submit this request. And when I submit this request, what's going to happen is it's going to be sent directly and dynamically to my manager. Now, it determines who my manager is using a truth table that I'll be showing you here in just a little bit. So I'm going to submit this request. And I get a little end form saying that this has been submitted for review, just so I know that it actually went through. And on top of that, if I close this, in the background, you'll see that my entire dashboard is updated. I now have 2 requests total, 2 requests in flight, and in here I can actually have this particular item selected, what I just submit. On the right-hand side, if I select different items, you'll be able to see that the right-hand side audit trail updates based off of the item selected and includes the comment that I actually just put in. Now let's switch hats. So let's switch over to the manager role and go ahead and approve this request. So I'm going to switch hats here. All right. And now I'm looking at the manager dashboard. This dashboard is just a little bit different from the previous one, and it shows me all the requests that need approval from people who are in my department. So in here, I can actually see Ben is has an IT request. I can select that item. I can actually right-click that item, and when I right-click it, I get a very specific contextual action menu based off of what actions I'm allowed to take on this request. I'll select this, Review User Request. It's going to give me some information about what was requested, when it's needed by, what the priority is, and allows me to add additional comments. I can deny the request, or I can approve the request. For our purposes, I'm going to say, this is fine. Actually, let's make it 32 gigabytes of RAM. I'm a very generous boss. I'll go ahead and approve this request. And when I approve this request, it's going to move on to fulfillment. So I'll approve here. Great, the response has been recorded. Let's go ahead and close this. And now what I can do, and it's actually fallen off my to-do list, off of my work queue, because of the fact that I've already handled it and no longer have any more actions that I can take on that request. Now I'm going to switch hats one more time, and this is to the fulfillment group. So I'm going to switch tabs here. And now I'm in the request fulfillment dashboard. Now I'm taking on the user who's going to be fulfilling this particular IT request. I can actually select it here because I can see it popped up automatically in my work queue. And let's see, I would like a new laptop, please. 16 gigabytes of RAM. Let's actually make it 32. All the audit trail remains right here. And right now, I can go ahead and right-click it as well. I have a different action on this. This is complete request. This is the action for the fulfillers. I get similar information as the manager did, and I can add my own comments as well. I'll be able to get you a new laptop by the 16th, which is 2 days before it's needed by. I'll complete this request. Great. That completes the entire story for how a request is done. It's quite simple, but it is incredibly effective. It kind of eliminates the need for emails and spreadsheets, and we can actually have a full audit trail of what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And what I'd really like to show next is how we're configuring this process. So let me switch back over to a new tab where I can actually see the portal. And what's interesting here is we've set up this process so that there's a very easy way to change the settings. Over here on our service catalog, we have a request settings option. We go ahead and click this request settings. It gives us a configuration wizard. The configuration wizard lets me immediately go to the different elements that are actually key to how this process performs. I can set categories. So the drop-down menu that we saw initially when I put in my request, these are the categories that were available. And I can actually add new categories if I wanted to. We have a set category managers. So for each of these different categories, there's a different manager who has to approve it. Now this manager, I'll go ahead and click here so we can see, can either be an individual, Ben Plus Manager at decisions.com, or HR at example.com, or if I wanted to, I could even set this as a group who might be responsible for approving instead of just a specific individual user. For example, I'll go ahead and switch tabs again. Set category fulfillment groups. If I click on this one, you'll see it's a little bit different. Instead of the individual users, I have entire groups that are responsible for fulfilling these different requests. And again, it's based off of what category I selected when I created the request. Switch back. Down here, we have some different state colors that I could just manually set directly here on this form. I won't change them, but I will let you see that we have a different preview panel on the right-hand side that shows us an image of what hex code we entered. And down here, I have two more actions. I have a delete data action that if I click, it'll allow me to delete all the data in this system. This is primarily used for demonstration purposes. I'll go ahead and hit no for now. I can also load some sample data. So if I really just want to see how this process performs, I can create some sample records and then click through and see how, make sure everything's working. For now, I'll go ahead and close this. We can confirm settings once we've made all of our selections if we wish to. I'm going to go ahead and close this for now. And this is the request fulfillment process.